and I'm the founder and CEO of IgnitedThinkers, a nonprofit organization I founded in the eighth grade to spread space education to all students. Today, I am so excited to be partnering with Felix's Spacetime to host a live panel with four visionary thinkers and leaders of the aerospace industry, where every 2 months we will have a panel with a different purpose and a theme to foster important conversations in the aerospace industry. Today's conversation will be centered around inspiring the next generation. Today's conversation will be centered around inspiring the next generation of the aerospace workforce, empowering young students to pursue a career in aerospace. Organization. Today, Felix and I are incredibly honored to be joined by four special panelists: Poppy Northcutt, Jared Issacmann, Christina Korp, and Felix Schlang. Yes, so our first question is for Christina and Felix. So we are all very strong advocates for the theme "Space is for all." And this statement includes individuals from diverse backgrounds as well as unique educational interests. So I'm curious, given both of your non-STEM backgrounds, could you share the importance of having every skill in the aerospace industry and why we need these unique educational backgrounds in the sector? Maybe Christina, you could start us off.
Sorry, I muted myself. I know better than that. Thank you. So I think one of the most valuable perspectives, especially from someone like me, I always loved space and I was fascinated by space. My grandma was always into astronomy, but I didn't really know a lot about space. And when I came in as an entertainment person, I felt like I had a whole fresh new perspective that a lot of the people who are deep in space sometimes take for granted. That's why with my foundation, my mission is to connect the space curious to the space serious, because now I'm deep in the space serious world, but I came from the space curious world, and that's where a lot of my friends and my family and network still are. And a lot of times what I hear is people think they're not smart enough to work in space. And I think that that's a big barrier, and that's another topic you have in there. But the thing that I think is valuable to bring new people from outside of space is just new ways of thinking, kind of out of the box thinking, and bringing different skill sets from every walk of life. And I think I know all of us share this, where we want to inspire people to understand that every job that you do on Earth, you need in space. And so, trying to get people to really believe that and see that there's a place for them. I know that we all share that purpose of trying to welcome more people in.
Yeah, I'm from the space curious background as well. I agree with everything you just said. If you look at NASA's infrastructure, for example, here at Kennedy Space Center, almost every job that you can imagine is needed to run the place, is needed to move the programs forward. It's not just the engineers building a new rocket engine or deriving the next plan for a probe to go somewhere. It's also the cook. It's the security personnel. It's even seamstresses that worked on the space shuttle to put on heat blankets and things like that. So you'll find all sorts of jobs in the space industry. I've been contacted by many people before via email or messages in social media thanking me for doing my content on my YouTube channel because it gave them the direction they needed, and so they entered the space industry. And it's not always engineers; it's everything. Everything's needed to move that forward. And if we think further into the future, things like SpaceX's endeavors and NASA's endeavors to go to Mars, for example. If we don't want to do what we did last time when we went to the moon, scoop up some dirt, put down a flag, and then return, and after that, not really continue. If we want to build a base, if we want to make it sustainable for a longer time, we'll need everyone, not just scientists and engineers, to be comfortable in a colony. I mean, we can do it the Martian way, with the, like in the movie, where you have this typical science outpost. But if you want this to be a long-term thing, it has to change into a village. And in a village, you'll find all sorts of people. That's what I would say.
Plumbers, carpenters, yeah, like dentists,
exactly.
everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
The barkeeper in the Mars bar is important.
Exactly. I love to think of space as a little world. So everything you would need in like the regular world on Earth, you would need just in the space industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Now on to our second question. This one's just for you, Felix. For those people who may not want to participate in the space industry, but want to help document it like you and so many others, what advice would you give to those people, and what kind of things do you think they should learn about and study in school?
Well, of course, it's a bit of a media background. If you want to run any sort of news outlet or content production, you'll need to know a little bit about content production. So I've been working in the media business for a long time before I started the YouTube channel, and a happy little accident, I was also interested in space and astronomy and all that stuff, and so I brought the two together, and that's how the channel was born. But maybe the most important lesson, and that's not just for content creation or it's basically, it counts for everything, and I think everyone here on the panel will be able to say the same, is if you want to achieve something great, you have to stick to it. You have to keep going. You can't be, there will always be naysayers and obstacles you hit and all sorts of difficult things you go through. What's important the most is just to keep going. That is so very important, and it's the same with the YouTube channel and anything else. So that would be probably the most important lesson. If I was able to talk to myself when I was 20, that's what I would tell myself, is to keep going is very, very important. It's not just to have the vision, it's also to go through with it. And we definitely have the right people for that here on the panel today.
Amazing. You had amazing answer. On to you, Katika, for your next question for Poppy and Christina.
Yeah, so Christina and Poppy, the aerospace industry has historically been a very male-dominated industry, and I'm so glad that there's now fellowships and programs to really, provide the platform for underrepresented minorities in the aerospace sector. And I'm curious, from the both of your experiences from two different generations of the aerospace industry, have either of you faced any gender biases in your current careers? And if you did, how did you overcome them? And what steps do we need to take as an industry to continue making space accessible and inclusive for everyone? Maybe Ms. Northcutt, you could start us off this time.
Sure. Well, my current career is not in space, really. My current career is I'm a lawyer, but I'm also semi-retired. So semi-retirement you don't experience those kinds of obstacles. At the time that I was working in the aerospace industry, it was sort of a derivative of the military, and all of that gender discrimination that the military had was imported into the space industry as it was formed. So it's not really surprising that it was a very male dominated and very white, very white, very male dominated industry. I was fortunate to work for a contractor rather than to work for NASA itself. And that's sort of a sad thing to say. But the truth of the matter is that I think the contractors at the time I was there, which was in the mid to late 60s into the 70s, that the contractors were often a lot less rigid and militarized, so to speak, than NASA itself. The discrimination that women faced was also a societal one. It went everywhere, okay? It was an ocean, a sea of sexism for women in the United States and I think across the world. So, you know, the expectation for women was that they were not going to go into anything like this. And job discrimination, they had men only job postings in the newspaper, women only. There was complete stereotyping about the jobs that you could even interview for, really. So it's a vastly different world. You know, the obstacles were really significant.
But you did it anyway. I mean, you know, it's inspiring to me. So I fell into this, like I said, I was a media person. I was a singer for a long time. And this was not the plan for my life to work in space. I was a musician. I came from a family band, like the real life Partridge Family, and then ended up going to Los Angeles to pursue my rock star dreams. And I got to do a lot of really cool things in music and produced concert specials for PBS, and I was featured in them. And that was my life before astronauts. And then, you know, as those of you who don't know, I started working for Apollo 11 astronaut Buzz Aldrin after answering an ad in the Hollywood Reporter. And, you know, I thought that job was going to be a piece of cake. And I did not know what I was getting myself into. And now almost 15 years later, I'm a space veteran. Now, the thing is I was often, again, the only woman in the room. Often it was me and the Apollo astronauts, which in and of itself is a kind of a crazy thing anyway. Just, you know, the fact that I'm the fly on the wall of the lives of the Apollo astronauts is just a great privilege. And to be honest, I have 5 brothers. All of my mentors have been men. So I'm quite comfortable working with men. And I didn't really think ever that I wasn't qualified enough or that I wasn't smart enough to be there. I've always just kind of been there, you know. But I will say that I did begin to notice that there weren't that many other women around. And as I was celebrating the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11, especially, I wanted to highlight pioneers. And that's when I began to meet the female pioneers. And so along with Poppy Northcutt, there's a woman named Joanne Morgan, who was the first woman to work at Kennedy Space Center. And hearing her story was so interesting to me because, you know, when she was a young girl, she said her father made all of the kids learn an instrument. He thought that was really important to have a well-balanced, like, education of both feeding your creative mind and also the technical mind. But when she was 17, she saw an ad posting to be an intern for the new rocket program. And she said the key was it didn't say boys, it said students. So she applied and came down to 2 students, and she was one of the ones selected. And so she said, like, she got selected, and on the Friday, she got to see her first rocket launch. That being said, when she started working at NASA, she was the only woman there for 10 years. And she said it was hard. It was really hard. She tried really hard to fit in. And, you know, Poppy did a lot of interviews back when she was at TRW. And Joanne didn't want to do them because she said she had worked so hard to fit in. And the guys were tough on her. She said they would come into that firing room and they would slap her on the back. Like they would do lots of things to try to intimidate her to want to quit. And she said, so she just did what she could to stay there. And she didn't want to rock the boat. So when NASA and others wanted to interview her as the first woman in mission control, in the launch control at Kennedy Space Center, she didn't want to do it because she didn't want it to seem like she thought she was special or that she was, you know, she didn't want to stick out. But then in the 70s, she finally did an interview, I think in 1972, and she said she got thousands of letters from little girls, especially in middle school, who said, wow, I didn't know you could be an engineer as a woman. And she said she realized she made a mistake Like she should have done what Poppy did, because she could have inspired more girls sooner to see that there was a possibility for them. And so she's been an advocate for, and still is to this day, to try to encourage more women and girls to go into engineering, because she said even when she was in college, going down the path of being an engineer, even the counselors would say, oh, you need to just go get married, young lady, just go get married and have a family. She said, there wasn't a lot of encouragement. So, I mean, that is changing. Obviously, now everybody's committed to STEM education and all of that. And I think that, people are committed to breaking down those barriers, but there's so many things that have to change. There are too much to go into this panel. But, the other part of it is a lot of women stop themselves from going for these jobs too, because they think they have to be perfect to work in the space business. And I'm always telling them, you don't have to be. I know lots of people who work in space. You don't have to be you don't have to be a genius. You have to have the willingness, like you're saying, don't give up, being willing to try, being willing to fail, being willing to, do whatever. That's just human nature and life. And so, I don't have a lot of people who've told me I can't do it. Or if they do, I guess I just don't pay attention to them and I do it anyway. And I think that that's a mindset that a lot of people share in space, that if one way doesn't work, then you find another way, and then you find another way. And I think that someone like Poppy, who's an inspiration to all of us, being able to see someone like her, and that's the key. Seeing more women and girls, more people from diverse backgrounds is the key too, to getting people to see, wow, that person looks like me. Maybe I could work in space. So, that's what I'm really committed to trying to help show, is the representation in a very broad form.
Yeah, both of you mentioned very powerful words. I always hear you can't be what you don't see. And I think with commercialization in space, we're starting to provide opportunities for a lot of different people from different backgrounds to go to space. And I know the first Egyptian woman just went to space. And I think we're starting to see that representation. And a lot of students and adults are starting to see that space truly is for everyone. So thank you.
This next question is for you, Jared. As someone who has experienced the overview effect, how would you describe that in the most detail? And do you think that if people who are not interested in space and the space industry, then if they experience that overview effect, do you think they would be inspired by that and want to participate in the industry and be inspired by space?
So lots of good questions there. So first I'd say, look, looking back at Earth from space, it doesn't look a whole lot different than some of the incredible high resolution pictures and video that we have available to us. I'd say where there's differences is you can just kind of feel the energy coming off Earth. Like the light is more intense than anything a camera, can really capture. I've said it before, like I have no doubt in the early days of the space program that the first time, human eyes looked at Earth from that vantage point, it was probably pretty powerful. I would say, look, in the last couple decades when we've all had access to these pictures and videos, like I don't think you need to go to space to know that we shouldn't be fighting wars or destroying our climate. I think that's pretty obvious. So, I think some of the more, kind of recent commentary is just, almost like good talking points, if you will, versus, totally life-changing events, because you should just know some of these things before you probably get there. For me personally, the impact that it had was much more kind of outward looking. I saw the moon in an unexpected moment. And for me, that was, what are we doing? We need to get back there and beyond, because literally, at 600 kilometers above the Earth, we're talking about the distance between 2 or 3 states. We're all communicating right now at a farther distance than we were from the Earth. The universe is enormous. The solar system is enormous. How much of an impact do we want to get, and do we want to make, and what do we want to really try and find out there? Because right now we're not even scratching the surface. I mean, even to say like, what we've begun to explore as the tip of the iceberg would be like, a gross overstatement of reality. So now in terms of like, will the world be a better place if more people are exposed? People who are uninterested in space now, if they had a chance to see the Earth from that perspective, that change, find out. I mean, that's kind of the exciting thing right now. We've had the most progress in space innovation, I think, in the last couple of years with respect to cost, right? Like amazing things have been achieved over the last 60 years. But now, the cost to, accelerate mass to orbit have come down to such a low point. And it's just getting started too. I mean, with Starship coming online and pretty much every space industry, putting capital towards rapid reusability, we really don't know how, the world is going to change over the next couple decades. I often liken it to, you go back to the early 1980s when you have, kind of the rich Wall Street type with their cell phones. And, it would be pretty easy to kind of, look down on that, what an expense to benefit the few. Right. And can't even imagine like today, the way society has been changed when, virtually everyone has access to a cell phone. I mean, look, we're able to see right now, chaos because people can capture it on their phones and put it out for the world to see. And it creates outrage and it makes the world a better place as like we're able to draw attention to things that shouldn't happen in society anymore. Right. Well, that's like the same thing now. I mean, 600 people or so have gone to orbit. What's the world going to be like when 600,000 people have an opportunity? Like you can't even fathom that. And until we had rapid reusability and a trajectory like Starship is taking us down, you could never have imagined it. And now we're well on that path. So, I couldn't tell you like how people, in mass are going to be affected when they see the Earth like that. I just know that we're actually on a path to making it possible.
Amazing. That's an amazing answer. I definitely know if I experienced the overview effect, I'd definitely be very inspired.
Excellent. Yeah, I think we all can relate with that. And my next question is also again for Jared as well as Felix this time. Both of you have had incredibly successful careers, fostering a really positive impact on many people in society today. But in this journey, I'm curious, did either of you face any obstacles getting to where you are today? And if so, how are you able to overcome them? Felix, maybe you can start us off.
Okay, so I'd like to add something to Jared's answer from the last question here. I've done a little experiment of asking children to paint space for me. And I wanted to find out about something. And what was the result of it was that most of them painted a picture where half of the picture was black and the other half of the picture was planet Earth, this huge curvature. And that's what the last 30, 40 years of spaceflight have created as a picture of space. But that's not space. You have to remove that large Earth curvature from the picture. That's space. So 99.9% of the universe is not Earth. And that's what we haven't explored yet. So great answer, Jared. Thank you very much. Very inspiring words. So now to the biggest obstacle that I've ever hit in my career would probably be myself. And maybe doubters. That's another big thing that I've always had to fight with. So if you have a great idea and you want to do it, stick with it. I said that earlier, and never let anyone tell you that you shouldn't. That is so super important. When I told my closest friends and family that I just quit my job and wanted to do a YouTube channel. I have 3 children, I have a family, and I had a good career in my job before. And everybody called me crazy, but I knew I wanted to do it. And so I stuck with it and it worked. And luckily it worked. Otherwise I would have had to enter my old career again. And my boss would have smiled all over the face if I would have approached him again half a year later saying that I need my job back, because I told him too that I'm going to be a YouTuber. So naysayers, it's a big problem. It's probably something that everyone here on the panel can agree with, and that we all face in our lives at some points, especially if we have one of those special ideas that don't really fit into the system. If you tell that to others, many of them react negatively to it. And so you should just smile and take their opinion, because it might be valuable for you in the future, but keep going. That is the most important thing. So my biggest obstacle was to keep going. That is, it's a constant fight against yourself, because yeah, it's a lot of work. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I guess I would just start with, I mean, for sure, there's always tons of obstacles on like the journey of life that we're on right now. I would say kind of getting grounded in the fact that it takes a lot of luck along the way. You know, I was with the Inspiration 4 crew in Starbase, Texas, I guess last week. And I had a moment there where I was just reflecting on like how many things had from, you know, when I was 16 years old and started a company in my parents' basement. Like it had nothing. It was just it was opportunity. And it's like all the dominoes that had to fall perfectly from that point in time to me being kind of reunited with the Inspiration 4 crew after a mission to space. It was like, wow, if you think that's all within your control, that you execute perfectly every step of the way and those type of things will happen in life, it doesn't. There's a lot of luck that's along the way, and the ball's got to bounce your way a bunch. And I think first being just kind of grounded in that reality just makes you a better person. It recognizes that a lot of people in the world, the ball did not bounce well for them. And putting a lot of your energy and time in kind of helping others becomes that much more important. It's why, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital was such an important part of Inspiration 4. And thanks, Felix, by the way, for making this this live cast, a part of that. So I think some of us going up luckier than others, kind of recognizing that takes us through a better path in life. It helps us get around obstacles that others might not be able to overcome, being a realist on that. And then I just think it makes you kind of a better person to help others on that same journey. The other thing, I guess, if I be like specific just about, kind of my career or whatnot, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, have a tendency to parlay success. Like you figure one thing out and you get it right, and you're not happy there, but you want to try and do something bigger and grander. And the results and the impact that it can have is awesome. But the risks that you're taking along the way that it doesn't work out become more immense, and that creates like bigger problems and stressors along the way. Whenever I think about like whatever challenges I face when I try and take that next big leap, I can just look at what Elon's doing, right? I mean, the guy cracks the code on reusable rocket technology, landing rocket ships. I'd say call that a day. That's going to change the world forever, right? It's like, let's just roll that right into the next thing. Let's try and connect the world, through Starlinks. And then we can do that faster if we have starships. Let's take on something that only, a government effort during the Cold War was able to achieve. And we can maybe go to Mars along the way. Like those kind of parlays, you wind back the clock, begin with something like, let's build electric cars, and then let's mass produce it in something else. Like it's getting something right, and then trying to take everything you learn from that and do it bigger and better the next time. And with it comes like things that can make the world a lot better, more interesting, but also comes with new challenges and obstacles and stresses associated with it. I think that's probably why a lot of people stop at some point. And unfortunately, the world's got, people like Elon and others in the space industry that don't want to stop until we get to Mars. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, those are really great, both great responses. I think the first of, always believe in yourself and the vision you have, but also trust in the process, and to have that, thought of like, where did I start, and all those pieces that happen to work together to where I am right now, and thinking about the future, taking those lessons and doing something bigger and better with it. So yes, both very great lessons.
This next question is for you, Poppy. You've been through some of the key milestones in the aerospace industry and have seen its rapid development. Could you share some insight into the significance of the Apollo missions and your thoughts on the upcoming Artemis mission?
Well, Before I get to that, I'm gonna comment on something that Jared just talked about. I mean, he talked about luck, and I certainly experienced a lot of luck. But the thing about luck is, I don't think that luck is entirely random, in the sense that I think that to a large extent we make a lot of our own luck. And part of what we ascribe to luck sometimes really has to do with being prepared to take advantage of opportunity and having the mindset that we're open to it, that we have not closed off our minds, but, we're trying to, we have at least 180 vision, if not 360. So that things that seem like they're random, well, we noticed them and other people did not. So in that sense, luck, luck is really important, but you have to be prepared to take advantage of it, and you have to be open to it. And it helps if you start off on, first base, second base, or even better, third base in terms of, privilege, because the further you are up there, the more opportunities you're going to have, and the better off you're going to be in terms of being able to take advantage of them. With regard to Apollo, I think that it opened the world's eyes to how much we could do if we really focused our energy and our resources on what amounted to an impossible goal. When John F. Kennedy came to Rice University here in Houston and, said, we're going to the moon and bring people safely back to the earth, and, by the end of the decade, that was an impossible goal at the time he said it. Nobody had ever even sent really gone to land. I mean, we had none of the technology that was necessary to do that. So I think that the main thing about Apollo, the main inspiration from Apollo, is that it tells you that if we really focus our energy for multiple people, bring our energy and bring our resources, we can do all of those things that, we can find a cure for cancer. We can. Yeah. We can find a cure for the common cold. We can end poverty. We can bring dignity to people. And we can go to Mars too, and even beyond. So I think that's part of what Apollo did. In terms of Artemis, I think that Artemis is going to do what I thought Apollo was going to do. I mean, if they had flown out the rest of Apollo instead of terminating it early, we would have gone on and explored the moon. To me, it was the first stepping stone to Mars. In fact, I was already working on Mars development, in terms of trajectory development. And we were already pretty well along in terms of developing multi-impulse capabilities to do aborts and to do, orbital injections so that we could fly polar orbits at the moon and really explore the moon. So, I'm just thrilled to death about Artemis finally doing what we should have done 50 years ago. I'm just happy I'm alive to see it.
Yep.
Yeah, my next question is for Christina. This is a topic we actually talked about a few times, but age is not a boundary to be involved in various aerospace initiatives taking place today, whether that be interning at NASA or a space company, or being involved in research, or even something non-STEM in the aerospace sector. So can you share some of the current opportunities for students and adults to start getting involved in the aerospace industry if they're interested right now here today?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, space is not a hard sell. Everybody loves looking at the moon, looking at the stars. I think it's what we carry our dreams upon. And so, regardless of who you are and how old you are, where you are in the world, what color you are, it's something that we all share as humans. And I think that that's again, a really uniting factor. And I do lots of space art projects with Nicole Stott and Cyan, and I just did a big project in the Maldives, actually, and Nicole and I went, and then we did space art with kids every day. That is interesting to me because these Maldivian kids came over from an island where they struggled to even go from boat to boat. They don't even have enough transportation to go from boat to boat. But some of these kids, how much they knew about Mars, how much they knew about like some of the different planets was really inspiring to me, because that really just reminds me of, like, you know, no matter where you come from, it's something that we all share, this fascination and this wonder and what it means to us as humans. And there also too, by the way, we could see the Milky Way with our bare eyes. We did not need a telescope. It was just so amazing to see it. And I could take photos with my iPhone. So, you know, that's a way I think I'm very passionate about encouraging young people, because, you know, I came from a humble background of I'm in South Dakota as one of 10 children, you know, we were quite poor, and I had big dreams to do big things, and now I get to travel the world with astronauts. But the reason you're talking about age and all of that, you know, one thing that I'm excited about is when I start having people coming to me who are the near same age as me, saying, look, I've worked in this business and other industry for a long time. It's too late. Is it too late for me? And I'm like, it's not too late for you. You know, there are lots of jobs. We need your skills. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to mention my friend Jen, who works for Stoke Space now. Like 2.5 years ago, she came to me, said, I've always been fascinated about space, but I work in software development. Could I, you know, I'd like to work in space. Could I do this? And I said, absolutely. We need you, as a matter of fact. And so now she's the head of marketing for a rocket company called Stoke. And so that's a perfect example of like trying to get people the space curious again and into the space serious world. The other part of that I want to say is, you know, it's not just that we want to invite people in, we need people. We need everybody. You know, I've had so many meetings with aerospace executives who say they go to high schools now to try to recruit people to come work in space, like for technician jobs and hands-on jobs. You don't need a college degree. They will train you, and they are trying to find ways to fill the workforce, because all of these things require a lot of people and a lot of expertise. And, you know, as someone who's been like the witness to the Apollo era, you know, I have literally met thousands and thousands of people, and I am not joking, of who worked on the lunar landers and who are so proud of the role that they played in building the bolt that held that component on the foot of the lunar lander. And that's why, you know, for me, like you say, like Jared was saying, you know, I produced the last 5 galas at Kennedy Space Center for Apollo 11. And after that, after the 50th anniversary, some people said to me, you're done. You have nothing else to prove. And I was like, no, I have a huge responsibility. I am the one who's witnessed this impact from this generation, and I need to pass that along. I need to do what I can to get young people to see that they can be part of something this important and have the pride in their work and come together in something really positive. And so I say that because I do think a lot of times, you know, getting young people interested and showing them a pathway is a huge part of what I try to do. But I also want people like Felix, like me, who you know, who are interested, to say, look, you can switch. It's not too late. If you want to work here, we would love to have you join us. And we really need everybody too. So again, you know, like Felix saying, his obstacle is himself. I think that is most people's obstacles, thinking that it's not possible for them, or they don't think that they can do it. And we're here to tell you, you can do it. No matter what age you are, you can be a part of this in some way. And we need you. It's not even that we're just saying there's jobs here. We're saying we need you. We need everybody. And we want you to be a part of it. And then look, if you don't want to work in space, you could still, you know, be a part of the inspiration and the awe and the art and helping to inspire others, even if you don't do a hands-on role. You know, that's what we all here are very passionate about. And I am, especially, I have a 11-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son who just assume they're going to be astronauts. They automatically just, to them, that's just it. They're going to be astronauts. My son is convinced I'm an astronaut. He said, I just don't remember I'm an astronaut because I need to find my spacesuit and then I will remember that I am an astronaut. Maybe he's got a premonition. I don't know. But anyway, you know, getting kids on board, it's not so hard. helping them to see the pathway. That's part of what I feel is my, responsibility. But I hope too, like you say, that I can inspire other people who are the same age as me, older than me, to see that it's possible for them to be in here. I see Poppy wants to pipe in. Oh no, I thought you said, yeah, me too. I mean, Poppy is a huge inspiration to all of us. And I, not just by the way in space, like as, advocating for women and women's rights and stuff like that. And so am I, And so we're grateful to when we all can come together to do something positive, And actually, I want to touch it before I finish on what Jared said too. Like part of what Space for a Better World is about is trying to get people to understand how space is intertwined in our lives in so many incredible ways that a lot of people don't really understand is space. And so that's one of the things that the access of what's going on in the world, what space provides for access. And, with what's going on in Iran, where all the internet's been shut off, and now Starlinks are going there and are going to enable communications so that people can still, see what's going on outside the world, see that they have support, what's going on in Ukraine. Maxar was showing convoys heading towards the people and it helped them evacuate. It's incredible. That's big world, like looking back at Earth, but exploring space and what we do when we go to Mars and what we go on beyond. I mean, what we will learn from that, what we benefit from that is, we can't even measure it. The return on investment is so gigantic. And I think it's just hard for people to wrap their heads around. But, trying to get people to understand how important space is and how we all benefit from it already, and how how I feel it's the key to saving our planet too. That's the bigger picture kind of mission that I have as well. Sorry, I'll shut up now.
No, that was a great response. I think you touched on so many key points, and also how you can, if you're interested in space and it excites you, then there is an opportunity for you to get involved regardless of your age or your background. I mean, I go on LinkedIn and I can connect with anybody I want in the world and just reach out to them. So I think we have a lot of free access and a lot of opportunities that we're blessed to have on the fingertips. Anywhere in the world to reach out, to learn, to apply to things for free, and to get involved in the aerospace sector. So really, I appreciate that answer. I'll give it over to Felix.
Thank you. So this next question.
Keep going.
So this next question is for Jared and Poppy. We all hear the phrase "it's not rocket science" thrown around many times, intimidating students to pursue aerospace careers and explore their fascinations around many physics concepts. How do you believe companies can embody the phrase "space for Earth" and make space technology accessible to all of Earth? Jared, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think just as space becomes a little bit more part of our lives, some of the mystery or the being involved with it will go away. I mean, like obviously, the human space program's been around for 60 years, but I think at least for a large portion of the population here in the U.S., it was a little bit less part of our lives since the space shuttle was retired, nearly a decade ago. So if you kind of think about it, like the last 2 years, it's really 2.5 years since human spaceflight has returned to the U.S., and we're seeing the benefit of like live streams of routine Falcon and other rockets going through industry, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, and it's becoming almost like a weekly event. It's reconnecting a lot of people. I've said it. I think it's like re-energizing a large portion of the population as to the possibilities, and those possibilities can be very. And that's what can be in people to pursue careers in, STEM and space and and I think like the reason I'm circling back to it is like, if you're not seeing this every day, if you're not seeing people in space and you're not seeing imagery from like James Webb Telescope and rockets landing on ships, and it seems like so infrequent, then the statement of that's rocket scientist is like this perceived massive hurdle that you can't overcome, probably resonates. But when it is more, you know, a part of our lives, like I think it really has been the last 2 years. Like it's not something of discouragement at all. I think it's like the exact opposite. It's like rocket science is cool, and I'm seeing it all the time. And there's clearly a lot of people involved, and I want to be involved in it too. I think just like, you know, the amount of like social media interest in this, like you know, Felix, like you're a great example of it over the last couple of years, like really getting involved and then bringing in a large group of other people to be interested in it. You know, these are recent developments. It wasn't like that, you know, 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago, really, I think. So to me, I just think like, you know, industry doing its thing. A lot of capital has gone into aerospace industry over the last couple of years, seeing things we have either seen in 50 years or never seen at all before. And I think that's just going to inspire a very large group. And I think as a result, like the idea that, you know, space is for the few, you know, the brilliant, the rocket scientists will continue to diminish until it's like, no, this is like just part of life, and it's interesting, and I want to be involved. I don't know. I guess that's just my thoughts.
Okay, so I have a little different take. First of all, I don't want to diss rocket science. I want more people to be interested in rocket science, and non-rocket science as well. But I mean, rocket science is really cool. And one of the problems that we have with the scientific disciplines, whether you're talking about it being rockets per se, or math, or chemistry, or any of these things, is that a lot of times the way it's presented in our schools is not interesting, and people get turned off. They get turned off prematurely. They don't understand that they really could be fascinated by these things, but you know, it's presented in ways that are boring to them. So I think one of the big challenges is to have better better education in terms of our teachers being better able to present these things and get people interested in them early. You know, as well as more and more people in the media, like Christina, okay, who go out and try to make these things accessible to people and understand that they too can be interested. I think a lot of times that what happens with people is that if they don't immediately understand and connect with a subject, they think it's maybe too hard for them, or they think it's too difficult, or they're just not interested, or it's boring, or whatever. And they don't give things enough time to understand that they could be the rocket scientist, you know? They could be the one who understands the particle physics. They could be the one who cracks the code on you know, how do we figure out if that planet, that exoplanet that's been discovered through James Webb, has the ingredients to sustain life. And so, you know, on the one hand, I want non-technical people to be encouraged, but I also want those people who could go on and make those incredible rocket science discoveries to understand that they too can do it. I read an article recently about a guy who said that, you know, he was math phobic, okay, from his earliest point in life, and then after he was in his 60s, he decided he was going to try to understand calculus and all of these things that he thought were way beyond him. And as it turns out, you know, he had a good mind for those things. He just never really gave it a chance. So, you know, I think the challenge is twofold: to appreciate the skills of the people who are not of a scientific bent, but also to encourage people to explore the possibility that maybe they are, they just don't know it yet.
There, amazing answers there. We're kind of running into our time limit now. So Gitika, would you like to take it away with our ending question?
Yes, I'd first love to make a comment on what Ms. Northcutt was saying earlier about getting into classrooms and to provide those opportunities, exciting opportunities for students to get involved in space. My passion for space sparked in a middle school rocketry club. And I know that kind of excited me about space, just launching those model rockets. And I know that with Ignited Thinkers, I'm doing something very similar where I'm trying to foster those exciting times where with a group of friends, you can, explore space, have a comforting like environment where you can just learn about space and rockets and feel like you can do it, because before that club, I never thought in a million years I could build a model rocket. And so that safe environment allowed me to, feel confident to build a rocket and fly it. So that's like a really great point that we need to focus on providing those opportunities for students to explore space in a comforting, fun environment and not something scary like a bunch of calculus. So thank you for mentioning that point. Yeah, and so the last question we have for every single panel member here today is we want you to talk about what space means to you. It could be related to what got you into space or what inspires you to stay in the space industry or just really anything. What does space mean to you? Please take maybe a few seconds to think, and whoever has a response can jump in.
I have a response. I think that space represents faith, hope, and optimism. I think, faith of like what the teams and the people who design it and everything that's involved with creating, say, like a rocket launch, the hope as that lifts off or what that's going to turn into and the optimism that we're going to get out of it. I think that that's a great encapsulation for me of what I think that space does for the world.
Well, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead. I think that if you're someone who has an inquiring mind, space is the place. Okay. It's full of challenges, it's full of puzzles, and it's full of surprises, both in terms of what you discover about what's out there, but also about what you discover about yourself. Just a few years ago, for example, most experts around the planet thought that planets themselves were a rarity and that habitable planets like Earth were basically close to non-existent. Okay, it'd be like an incredible kind of thing that those existed. And yet today, almost daily, we have data coming in from these incredible telescopes that we have out there, the James Webb and the Hubble, that are showing that there's not just millions of stars out there, there are millions of galaxies out there. And planets are not a rarity. Planets are all over the place. They even have a name for them now called exoplanets. I think that's one of the most exciting things I've ever heard about. So the odds are that there's somebody out there, as we're looking back in time at somebody else's galaxy and stars forming, there's probably somebody out there that's looking at our time. And we just the challenge of figuring out how we can meet their mind. So that's what inspires me, is thinking about that incredible discovery and the surprises we haven't even imagined yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go into the same direction with my answer. Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot. If you haven't read that yet, it's very much worth it. Space is everything. Space is even includes our planet. We tend to make this division between space and us, but technically you're in space right now. You just haven't left the atmosphere of our planet, but still you are part of it and you're part of the universe, and that's space. So it's a very short word for a very big thing. I said it earlier, it's 99.999% of everything else except for Earth. And it would be when we did our first steps out of the caves in Africa back in the days, we started a line of exploration, and to reach for the moon and Mars and eventually maybe even beyond our solar system is to continue that line further and further and further, from that first step out of the cave to see what's beyond that hill over there, to wanting to settle on Mars is a huge accomplishment. And I'm very much looking forward to to how this line is going to continue into the future. As long as I can witness it, I want to. And that's why it is so important to inspire people about space.
Yeah, I think these are all excellent answers. I mean, to me, I think about space with intrigue and opportunity. I mean, intrigue in that there is just so much we don't understand or appreciate. And I come back to, again, some of the, questions that, I think humankind has been asking itself, since the beginning. The questions that we've all been seeking answers to is probably out there. And then I say opportunity, not in like, the economic sense at all, but opportunity just for, a better future for our civilization. I mean, so much of what we do here on Earth is about our own competitiveness, whether it's individually or collectively at a nation. And frankly, almost all of the progress we've made in space has been about competitiveness, what we could do before the other guy could do it. Even today, I'd say, some of the, emerging space nations, it's about, their own, national interests or pride or national security, even using it for satellites and other things. And it's like, depending on what intrigue reveals in space, it's like an opportunity for something so much different, individually and collectively, to do things to make all of our species, like everything we're trying to accomplish, different and better than how it exists today. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I think about opportunities in space.
Yeah, those are all very great responses and something I can relate with as well when I look up into the sky and think about all that's beyond and what are the possibilities of the unknown. Definitely excites me and keeps me up at night. So we all are on the same page, I think, about that. Looking up into this space gives us excitement, and that unknownness keeps us driving forward into creating these technological advancements. So yes, thank you. And I think we have questions in the chat that Felix will start reading out that we can answer, hopefully.
Yeah, we haven't got any questions yet in the chat, but if anyone who's watching, if you have any, put them in the chat now, and we'll do our best to answer them before the end. We have had a couple donations on our page. No questions with them, but thank you so much to everyone who's donated. We've raised just over £100 today. So thank you so much to everyone who's put in a bit of money for this. Until the end of next week, the page is still open to donations for St. Jude. So feel free to donate some money. Every little helps going towards St. Jude. So we haven't got any questions in the chat, unfortunately, but thank you so much to everyone who's come on to watch today, and to all of you who've agreed to coming on here and answered some of these questions. Thank you so much. Gadika, have you got anything else to say?
Yeah, I just want to thank all of the panel members here today for taking time to share your advice, kind of share your life story, as well as, ways to navigate this big aerospace sector. I know that I learned a lot from each and every one of your responses, and I'm looking forward to staying connected with all of you and continuing to make space more accessible for everyone.
And you both are an inspiration to us. I want you to know how much you both inspired me. So
thank you so much.
Yep, same here.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well,
thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. It's always amazing to speak to everyone.
Okay, ended it from my end, so okay, good.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming on here.
Thanks for having us, Felix. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll share to